Let's start with regulation. So you guys are publishing this blog post today about international expansion. I feel like it's something you've talked about a good amount. Is there any sort of tipping point or breaking point at which you say, well, all of these G20 countries have got some sort of regulatory framework, the U.S. doesn't, and we're just going to pick up and leave? As a CEO, would you ever say, it's not worth it to operate in the U.S.?
We're not there yet, but as you pointed out, it's really good to see that 83% of G20 countries now either have crypto legislation in place or they've started the process. It's in progress. And so that's where we're investing our resources around international expansion this year. We just launched in Canada last month. We launched our international derivatives exchange the month before that. And so it's true the U.S. is a little bit of a laggard here, and that's not good for America. I'm an American. We started the company in America. America's going to get this right. There's some really important bills going through the House right now that just had got bipartisan support in the House committees. We're going to make sure America gets this right, but it is disappointing to see it lagging behind right now the rest of the G20. You mentioned, I've been really happy to see the judicial branch of the government. One of the beautiful things about America is we have different branches of government. The judicial branch has been great at upholding rule of law here. And even if we've seen some actions which were negative from the regulator, the courts have now upheld in the Ripple case, the Terraform case, that the underlying assets themselves are not securities. We saw in this Grayscale announcement from a judge, or ruling by a judge, that the SEC's action was unlawful and it was arbitrary and capricious, right? And so we need to ensure that everybody has equal treatment under the law. Crypto should not be penalized. It should be treated on a level playing field with traditional financial services. So the judicial branch has done a great job of upholding that, which gives me a lot of confidence. You mentioned these ETFs, which have been a really important development. Now, Coinbase has an important role to play here. We've been named as the custodian in many of these ETF applications. And our view is that it's going to be really good. It's going to bring in new sources of capital into the crypto ecosystem. That's going to be good for crypto, but it's also going to be good for Coinbase.
Welcome to the Crypto Teacher. And I come back with that video just to make you think.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Support this great content by hitting the Cash App and by joining the Patreon.
And guys, thank you for all the birthday wishes. Remember guys, I'm partying all weekend. Keep the Cash App ringing. And I know a lot of you stated you got me this weekend. Take your time. I feel the love today. A lot of you understand the amount of studying and work I put into this. But guys, we have Brian Armstrong again, speaking about the U.S. being behind. And guys, we know the U.S. is behind on purpose, and Brian Armstrong definitely knows that. But he speaks about Ripple and XRP not being a security and how the courts are ruling in the favor of crypto. But remember, guys, this is all part of the plan. The level playing field with traditional finance. And then we have Coinbase being the custody of majority of these spot Bitcoin ETFs. And again, this is all part of the plan. And don't forget, Coinbase was selected by BlackRock to provide Aladdin clients access to crypto trading and custody via Coinbase Prime. And we know Aladdin is undefeated. And remember, the Crypto Teacher told you. Now we have CNBC plays the perfect Hegelian dialectic when it comes to unions. And guys, we know any good paying job with great benefits, and you don't have to have a degree or you're not high up in the company, we know majority of those jobs are union jobs. Right now we're seeing these big corporations laying off, stock is going up, dividends are going up, but putting people out of work, so therefore they can't even feed their family. And we still have more layoffs to come. Now, I told you on the stock channel that China news will signal Apple stock to come down. And they're not going to be the only one. We know the NWO are the master magicians. We know China's government not using Apple phones is not going to bring the stock down. We know the higher interest rates and higher yields are going to hurt these tech stocks. We know the Fed wants to keep these interest rates higher for longer. And speaking of the Fed, we have Leon Kuberman talking about how yield rates are going to crush a lot of these companies and banks. But we know, guys, some are going to benefit as usual. But when the Fed actually pulls the rug, all these stocks and cryptos are going to take a hit. But we know the NWO stocks and cryptos are going to rise right back to the top. And remember, the Crypto Teacher told you, because he knows. when it comes to the NWO, it's all planned out. You have a wonderful day.
The United Auto Workers could go on strike a week from today if they don't reach agreement on raises and benefits with Ford, GM, and Stellantis. It comes in a year where unions from Detroit to Hollywood are seeing a resurgence in a tight jobs market. It raises the question, are unions a force for good in the U.S. economy? John Ford is here to weigh in on this. John, good morning.
Morning, Becky. Not anymore. Unions right now threaten to derail the economy with some pretty extreme demands. Now, don't get me wrong, unions have done a lot for America. They practically created the middle class, ended child labor, and standardized the 5-day work week. But today they're using a tight labor market to force concessions that could destroy auto companies in a few years when conditions normalize. Example, United Auto Workers want a 40% raise over the next 4 years and a return to defined benefit pensions and retiree medical benefits. What's the problem? Well, electric vehicles have fewer moving parts than traditional cars, and a lot of the more complicated assembly is likely to happen with non-union suppliers before they reach a union shop. So when the big three have to compete with non-union Tesla and overseas rivals in the EV market, bloated costs will kill their profits, tank their stocks, and mothball auto plants again. I'm not against wages going up, but it shouldn't happen in a way that hamstrings companies so they can't adapt in quickly shifting industries. When unions insist on unrealistic terms in the name of worker advocacy, they become a destructive force, Becky.
Okay. Does the union's opening offer have to be that reasonable? Isn't that what negotiations are all about? Starting off with something that you know you're not going to get and then whittling it down?
Yeah. Well, Becky, on the other hand, a resurgence in unions is exactly what we need right now. Without them, we've got an animal farm economy where the C-suite Napoleons take a bigger share of profits for themselves while the working class builds the windmill. The Auto Workers Union started negotiations at a 40% pay increase because that's what the CEOs have gotten in recent years. And they're pushing for pensions and retiree health plans because the American worker can't just roll over and accept a life of financial and medical insecurity in older age. Unions have become especially important now because other major stakeholders have plenty of power. Celebrity CEOs anoint themselves corporate saviors, then collect millions even if they fail. Shareholders goose share prices by pressing companies to buy back stock or lay off workers. Workers, meanwhile, are stuck with wages that don't keep up with inflation, benefits that get worse by the year, and now the fresh threat of obsolescence from automation and AI and now electrification. The unions won't get everything they want. They probably shouldn't, but the only way workers will get anything better in this era of avarice and algorithms is articulate some principles and stand by them, Becky.
Let's talk a little bit more about higher interest rates. If you think we could be going to 5.5% on the 10-year, what does that mean overall for the economy? Are there problems that are going to pop up?
I don't think I think it's a sectoral issue. And you have to look at it company by company. Some companies benefit from higher interest rates. A recent addition to my portfolio was a company called Fidelis Insurance. Mm-hmm. They have a portfolio of short-term paper, so they benefit from higher interest rates, the reinvestment rate. On the other hand, housing will be adversely affected. But again...
What about potential problems in the banking sector? Do we see problems come up?
The speed of interest rate rise is an issue, not the magnitude.
Okay.
If you go back, in the last bubbles, in 2000 and in 1972, interest rates were over 6%, and multiples were higher than they are currently. So I don't think there's a problem with multiples on the market. I think that the issue, look, Powell kept interest rates far too low for too long, and then raised them very abruptly. And the speed of the rise would destabilize the system. Plus, he was telling people the market was not overvalued, given where interest rates were, but he never bothered telling anybody that interest rates didn't belong where they were. So I'm highly critical of his performance.
Apple trading lower today, down almost 3.5% on a pair of big decisions against the company. The EU naming Apple, along with Alphabet, Amazon, Microsoft, Meta, and ByteDance, as a gatekeeper under its Digital Market Act, which means it will now be facing far-reaching rules aimed at making competition more fair.
In China, the ever-present Apple risk lurking in the background until, of course, it isn't. So it's once again front and center, this time putting the company on track to lose some $200 billion in market value in just 2 sessions. 2 issues are emerging here. I'll break it down for you. One, that report that China is restricting the use of iPhones at central government agencies. Tim Cook, of course, has been on this mission to diversify its supply chain to India in particular, but the company still currently relies on 19% of total revenue from China. The fear is that the ban on the government side could expand to state-owned enterprises, and that could put a real dent in sales because some of China's biggest companies are state-owned. The second issue here hitting shares, a potential resurgence of Huawei. Its latest smartphone being seen as the first significant threat to Apple's dominance in the market in years. Huawei, you might remember, it is the giant Chinese national telco equipment company that has been at the center of Beijing-Washington tensions a number of times over the years. The latest, the U.S. export ban, it essentially decimated Huawei's smartphone business by restricting its access to Google's Android, the operating system which its phones use. Now, this chart I'm going to show you, it shows you the winner of that move. Far and away, it's Apple. Its market share in China went from 56% to nearly 70% in just a few years, largely because of the effects of that export ban. B of A writes that Huawei's new phone, it's certainly not an iPhone. Its new phone could be an opportunity for it to increase shipments and regain market share, of course, at the expense of Apple. Now, this also has broader implications. The phone uses an advanced chip made by a Chinese chip maker, SMIC, and that really represents a breakthrough for the country's semi-ambitions. And it's also an indication of how those U.S. sanctions have really rallied the Chinese state and its industry to work together for achievements like this. The timing also interesting for years as tensions ratcheted up and U.S. sanctions hurt homegrown companies like Huawei. Many have wondered, including myself, when China would strike back in a significant way. Now that it's here and it's affecting Apple, where does it stop, guys? I mean, it opens up a whole new chapter in the tensions between the two.
Going to a different economy. And we're going to be learning more about that as we go. But clearly, we're learning that things can be done from remote locations. We're learning that technology can replace people even more than we thought.
We're not going back to the same economy. We're recovering, but to a different economy, and it'll be one that is more leveraged to technology. And I worry that that is going to make it even more difficult than it was for many workers.
In Silicon Valley, and my friends who work in technology know that what we did to the manufacturing workers, we are now going to do to the retail workers, the call center workers, the fast food workers, the truck drivers, and then even bookkeepers, accountants, insurance agents, lawyers, and on through the economy. So what happened to the manufacturing workers is a very clear sign.
And so we'll import Chinese-based CBDC technology. So it's going to be CBDC in a box, provided to you by the People's Bank of China.
But every stock, every bond, every currency, every commodity, every piece of art, every private business, every piece of real estate will eventually be a token on a blockchain, an entry on a ledger, permanent and immutable. We will have truth instead of trust, and we will save over $7 trillion a year. 6 to 8% of global GDP is wasted by the friction of the trust industry that's necessary when you have dual entry accounting. With triple entry accounting, which is what a blockchain is, we get rid of all of that friction. It's a beautiful future.
Like what you see in China and their social credit scoring systems, right? If we get identity wrong, it could be a tool to enslave humanity. And if we get it right, it could be a tool to liberate humanity. And as an American, I'm obviously rooting for the one that's on the side of freedom.
Bitcoin is an international asset. And also, I do believe the role of crypto is, it's digitizing gold.
I actually believe this technology is going to be very important. Look at it. We have been part of the huge revolution in investing through ETFs. We believe that ETFs will be changing the whole way we invest. Many people still use it as a means, people are investing it for indexing. No, the majority of people who are putting money in an ETFs are active investors that are buying exposure. The entire bond market is being transformed as we talk right now. I believe the next generation for markets, the next generation for securities will be tokenization of securities. And if we can have that distributed ledger that we know every beneficial owner every beneficial seller, we all have our code of who's buying, who's selling, instantaneous settlement. And think about it, it changes the whole ecosystem.
Cryptoteacher and the New World Order book, plus the 3 kids books. It's time to re-educate. Also, new to cryptos, Coinbase, Bitrue, Binance. Do not forget book links and crypto links are in the description. The stock channel, guys. Don't forget to go like, subscribe, spread everywhere. You have your Kobo, your chip stocks, your banking, your gaming. While everybody's sitting at home, get home stocks, the Seaver, the biotech stocks. And while everybody's at home wishing, they were still getting that free money. What are they doing? Drinking and smoking weed. Don't forget about those stocks, and you have a wonderful day. The most powerful person in the world is the storyteller. The storyteller sets the vision, values, and agenda of an entire generation to come. Steve Jobs. And guys, you know I truly believe in this. When you look at the New World Order, they're the storytellers. And that's the reason why I wrote my New World Order book. But guys, now it's time to change the current generation. And I wrote 3 kids books. You know I love the Trinity because I understand the power that's in it. So I have 3 books. We have an opportunity to change the generation, to educate, not just me, but I want to show you that I take action on a daily basis. And I want you to take action on a daily basis. Whether it's your job, whether it's in your community, we have an opportunity right now to educate the masses. I posted this on my Twitter account. Please share, but this is a short clip of the 3 books. There's going to be a clothing line and action figures. Please get these books for your kids, nephews, cousins, friends, so therefore we can start the re-education now. Because as we see, the 4th Industrial Revolution foundation is definitely here. Robots, algorithms, drones, taking humanity out the picture. We have to re-educate. But let's get into the video.
Part 1. King Joshua and Drama Tam save the village. Part 2. King Joshua and Drama Tam save New York. From COVID Stories 3. Part 3. King Joshua and Drama Tam goes to China.
It's mandatory to get part 1, part 2, and part 3 of this series. It's time to re-educate Generation Z.